Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared, and finally, we are back to yet another episode of Comics versus Prose. That's right. Assassin's 3, Assassin's Apprentice 3, number 1, has just came out, and I read it as soon as I got it, and this was a excellent issue. So, let's get right into it. Once again, this is written by, of course, Robin Hobb and Jody Hauser, with the script by Jody Hauser, beautifully illustrated by Ryan Kelly, with colors by Jordie Bellaire and letters by Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. I hope I know I messed that up. And the cover is done by Anna Steinbauer, and pretty cool cover there, which does reflect a nice, harrowing actually scene in the comic. So this comic, of course, I'm picking up right where we left off 6 months ago, and so last July or whatever it was, or June, we ended up with at the end of chapter 16 in the novel. And this episode right here, actually, this issue, I should say, actually covers pretty much the entirety of chapter 17, which is a pretty long chapter in this particular book. And it's like at least 20 something, 24 pages or so, and which is, for this book, is a lengthy chapter, but it's a very pivotal one. It deals with what it's called the trial, and it deals with Fitz going out, being sent out into the wilds, and Galen's supposed to contact him via the gift or the talent or whatever they're calling it, and other things happen. It doesn't really happen. It doesn't really go the way it's supposed to. Um, Lots of things happen in this issue, and in this chapter in the book as well. So what I wanted to point out right away is that the epigraph to this chapter, once again, is not reflected in this book at all, and has to deal with the ceremony of becoming a man. But that's not dealt with in the comic. The comic goes straight into the story, the main thrust of the chapter, and the and there's a little bit of instruction, a conversation here between Fitz and Bjork, and so it's pretty much straightforward from the book. The conversation in here, they pick and choose key parts of the dialogue from the book to place into the comic, so that you don't have too many word balloons mucking up the art, and they do a great job of it, as always. And the and it goes on right to page 2 and page 2 of the chapter pretty much match up word for word, describing the dialogue, the conversation, and the action, and just the look that the artists give the characters. You got Bjork right here. You see his agitation is pretty evident there, and the book describes that agitation in prose. So it's the artwork, once again, doing a great job of conveying that. So we move on to page 3. The story continues on. It really is going page for page, taking it out of the book and bringing it to life, and once again, beautifully. On page 4, it's very quick. They take a lot out of the book for the next couple pages here, 3, 4, and are pretty much word for word out of the book with panels. we have that almost sepia tone coloring when he's thinking about the past, and which is, I think, is a great use of that method of differentiating his thoughts about the past and what he's saying to differentiating from the present where he's thinking. And so we move on to page 5. Let's see. There was something about I had no belief he would contact me, and it was interesting because in the novel he mentions that he had no belief that um, he should try to contact me. And in the comic, and he's talking about Galen, his instructor in the skill, and in the comic he says, "I have no belief he would try to reach me." And I'm kind of curious as to why they would change that particular narration. And so it was just very interesting. And I think it has to do with the previous panel where it says he mentions that sometime in the next 2 days he should try to contact me, and then there's only 2 lines later where he says, I had no belief he would really try to contact me. I think she didn't want to repeat it again, and they change it in the comic to say reach. And I think that was maybe an editorial decision that they did that. So very interesting, interesting there how you can make that kind of a editorial decision after the fact when presenting an adaptation of the original. I find that very fascinating. And page 5 goes on, and it pretty much takes right out of the book what they're saying and putting it on the page once again. Now on page 6, I found it very, very cool. It was only one paragraph in here, and it was a full page spread here, but it's all in this greenish type artwork here with the colors, and the artwork is showing all the people in his past, and the artwork is showing the people, whereas in the book it's telling you who the people are that he's thinking about, that he's kind of dreaming about. And yeah, it's his dreams are muddled and sour. And so she describes in the book everything, all the people in his dreams that he's come across, whereas in the comic they're just showing it, they're showing the artwork. And I really like how they did it. And you just get a really good sense of because his artwork is so distinct and so well done, the characters really stand out as unique and individual. They don't there's no blurring like, oh, those guys look similar. No, not at all. This artist is just on his game. And the next page, Fitz, it was interesting because Fitz is in the head of the dog when Burek gets attacked. This is a key page and a key event in the chapter. And Fitz is in the head of the dog, and there's blood, there's a knife stab, the dog is biting, and there's all this red coloring. So it really brings out the intensity of the action here. And I really like how they did that. It continues on in the same manner on the next page. Really short sections of the book in here that describe this encounter. And then the next page, it's back to Fitz, back to the regular artwork, the regular coloring that we know. And that's another page in here that describes what he's going to do. And one thing I found interesting, that in the book on page 9, there's a line that says, I would have to clear it of Smithy's tenuous thread. I would not. That's a whole sentence. In the comic, once again, an editorial decision, they decided to make that very bold. I would not. And so they wanted to really, the lettering wanted to really emphasize that. And so that's another editorial decision about emphasizing that sentence specifically. And I like those choices. I like what they're doing there. And there is, and there's another one. He was wondering who went after Burek. He didn't know, and he suspects Prince Galen, um, his teacher, and of the skill. And in the book, when he says Galen as a one-word sentence, it's with a period. In the comic, it's with a question mark, and I like that's another editorial change that I found very fascinating. So there's a lot of little neat things they're doing with the story, and I wonder if it's because this is under the direction of Robin Hobb, and so I wonder if it's through her direction that she wanted those emphases okay, those things changed, or if it was um, the editor of the comic itself, Brett Israel, who made those decisions. I don't know. And it's just a very interesting decision. I think they work very well. Um, the next page, Fitz encounters some of the Forged. Once again, it's a battle scene. He's it's violent and it's reddish. It takes place during like a reddish dawn. And that is very well reflected to emphasize the violence of the scene and emphasize red has that kind of visceral connotation to it, that it's that's a violent scene. And I don't know why I keep taking these off because I need them. But anyways, we move on to page 11. There's some text skipped here. And page 11, then it gets in, takes it from the book. It pretty much takes it right out of there, I think. Let me double check here. Oh wait, yeah, yes. There was one actually still on the violent page on page 10 there. Um, no, that is page 11, right? The artwork. I like how the artwork is showing him whacking the knife out of the guy's hand, and she describes that in the book very specifically, and the artwork is showing that very specifically. I like how that's done. The next page is page 12, and like I said, there's more on page 12. There's more of the violence, the fleeing. This is the page where we get the cloak flying off because he leaves it to them in order to get away, and so that's kind of correlates with the cover there. Very nice, very cool. Then we go on to let's see here, and of course, what I should show you there was no um, narration. It was just the picture showing what was happening. So very cool, very nicely done. All right, we move on to let's see here. Yes, we got. Yes, we got on that same page. Like just these little things, like when in the book it says, "I dared to look back," but you don't need that description when you got Fitz right there, looking back in fear. So that's kind of conveys that "I dared to look back" aspect of that. So, wow, just wonderful stuff. Really, really wonderful stuff. Um, Page 13 comes on, and once again, we move back into the story, and it pretty much takes the words right from the book. It skips over some things. It takes the words that it needs to convey it. It uses artwork to convey what doesn't need to be said when the artwork says it all. And occasionally they change the the order of the wording just to make it to have it make sense with the artwork itself, which I think is very key. And let's see here. I gotta read my notes too. Yeah. All right. So we have. Yep. We have a little change of order in the artwork and the words. Like I said, for the next page as well. We're moving on, and it just keeps doing this similar thing. When he's dragging himself through the sand, he's you see a picture of him doing so, and so the artwork is very good with this. The one thing I really thought was touching was on page 16 when when he feels, unfortunately, this what this book does to animals. It's kind of cruel, right? The dog's dying. It's very sad, and he feels that wispy, ghostly. Because he's feeling this in his head with his wit. And you see the ghostly tail and all that stuff wagging, saying goodbye, and he was alone. And I like how they portray that. I like how that's the magic of the world, basically fits his magic. And I like how they portray that in order to really get that across well. So we have the next page is more violence. So there's a lot of action in this chapter. And finally he gets back to Burek. I love how they show how beat up both of them are. I mean, that's just really great artwork, because that's what you feel in the books. The books describe it. The artwork shows it. It's just great thing. And I found it interesting that on one of the dialogues between Burek and Fitz, when they're having a conversation, and they're talking about the dog, and Burek says he died quickly, and then he says in the comic he died well. In the book, Fitz is the one who says he died well. So I'm wondering where that change came from as well. So at the end of this this comic, we had the last page. We had the argument between Fitz and Burek is done with him, which is pretty pretty devastating. So this issue was a lot. It had contained a lot. It contained a lot of action. This was really it's a pivotal chapter in this book, I think so. From what I can tell. I mean, I haven't read the rest, so I'm just following along here with the story. So those of you who already read this and know, maybe you can tell me something different, but I think this is a fairly pivotal chapter. The last page in this chapter is not included in this issue. I don't know if it's going to be included in next, or if they're just going to kind of skip over it and go right into chapter 18. But that is Assassin's Apprentice 3, number 1, for my Comics versus Prose episode number 13. So for those of you who have been waiting, for these comics to come out, they are back out again. And so they should be out monthly for the next upcoming 5 months until we finish off Assassin's Apprentice, my first foray, my first book into the Robin Hobb and the Farseer trilogy and the whole realm of the Elderlings experience. So that's it. That's what I got for today. And so if you like this video, please like and subscribe below. And thank you very much for watching. And please be good to each other.